And welcome to Gunnar Weiskamp's Web Development. Now we're going to be doing one of our first lessons in .Net MVC, as can be seen here. We will be talking about initial concepts of what MVC, starting slow and going large later on. So first of all, what is MVC? Okay, MVC is an architecture design pattern that has been around for decades, for a very long time. Microsoft about 10 years ago decided to use it in its web development area. It took over from web forms as the new standard to create web apps with. You can still create web forms, but believe me, there's not many companies investing time in it anymore. So MVC for some time now, good 5 years, possibly 7, has become the standard for creating web apps. But that is also, just briefly I'll mention, there is a new design pattern coming out roughly now as well. So technology always moves. MVC stands for Model View Controller. Part of its key aim is to break an application's code areas into individual areas. The model is meant to just hold a representation of the data you're trying to show. The view mainly holds all the HTML or information you're showing. The controller does all the heavy lifting. It does all the work. As an example, you'd normally do all your validation, your database calls in there, your number crunching, etc., etc., etc. That the controller does all the heavy lifting. So I guess let's start an app. That would always be a good thing. Now I'm going to be using Microsoft Visual Studio here. You can see the Community Edition for 2013. So let's go to File, New Project. And as we can see, it's coming up. Make sure, so within all this environment, it's easy to have things set wrong. Make sure you're clicking here on Visual Studio. Well, I've got here 2012, which is already old. And make sure you click on ASP.NET MVC for web application. Take note of the framework that I'm working within, 4.5. What are we up to now? Already 4.6. So make note of that because different frameworks support different things in MVC, so it's an important thing. We can give our application a name. Let's just browse for a folder. Projects. And I'm going to put here under just a temp directory. And we will call this employee data. Okay, now with the next window that we see, make sure you have an empty MVC application, because I just want to demonstrate some basic commonality with MVC. There's other things you can obviously select here. Your basic will come and Microsoft will add certain things to it. But just for the first one, I just want to keep it nice and simple. We will add stuff in so we can understand what's going on. So make sure you click empty. Don't worry about a unit test. Make sure it's Razor. And anytime now, it's all going to come up. Once it's come up, on our right, we're going to discuss the folder structure just briefly. So for those new to MVC, I just want to give you some sort of understanding of what the folders mean overall from an application standpoint. And any moment now. Whoop, yes, it's doing something. As you can see down here, there are many parts that is added into an MVC application. A number of libraries. Here we go. Doing some last minute things, and we should be good. Let's have a look over here. Alright, okay, let's open that up. Now, as we can see, we've got this folder structure here. I want to sort of explain some of the things. Some of the things with MVC are normal with the old web forms as well. App data is where you'd normally add your database. App start is an interesting folder. It holds files which will run when the application starts. I don't want to digress too much, but this guy here is quite important. MVC uses, oops, if I click too many times, I have clicked too many times. MVC does a process called routing, and this is done in our routing config to get to its URLs. I'm just briefly mentioning that. We'll discuss more of that later on, but feel free to have a look. Routing URLs, it tells MVC where to put the URLs and how to use them, roughly. But I want to I will be trying to do a tutorial on routing in itself later on. Controllers. So let's go back to what I was talking about. MVC is made up of controllers, models, and views. So we can see here folders created for each one. In this view, it has its own web config, but that's it for this one. There are no views currently added to this application. There are no models, controllers, or views added into this application at this stage. So to start off, let's add a model, and a model is just purely a C# class. As a naming convention for models, it's good to have the end of it called model, so you can easily identify the file. Now, I have created some, to help speed things up, I have created some code already. So this should work fine within here. So feel free to pause and have a look at the code. We're creating a simple class here. It's quite straightforward. The name, job title, and age. These are all properties which we will be using in our application. So you can see here this models folder, like I was saying, holds a representation of information that we want to display or use. So that's what a model does. Now, normally after we put a model in, we can now add a controller, and we want the controller to use that model. So this is a good stage to build the application quickly, just so certain other parts of the application can see the model file here. While that is happening, or is that too early? No, that's too early. Oh no, I can already grab that. Why not? We'll go over. Oops, what are we doing? Yes, we will go over to here. I've already created some code here, so when we do create a controller in a moment, everything will run a bit quicker. So we have our build succeeded. So now we add a controller. A controller again is not a C# file. Sorry, it's a C# file, but it's a special one. So you go in here, add a controller. The special part of it is what I'll just talk about in a second. We are creating, so you can create templates for your controllers. This is, initially, if you're new to this, is all quite a lot to take in, but right now we're just going to create an empty MVC controller. So we're going to call it home controller. So add in here. Now, what I mean by it's a special code sheet, obviously it's just made up of C# code. I'll just address one important facet of it. It inherits from this controller-based class. That's what makes it special. This controller-based class has many properties to it. One of it is the mother of this action result, and it holds many other properties which makes a controller file what a controller is. So we have to add in our employee data models. So if you're new to C#, we're just adding in this namespace here so we can get at this object here, because we want to take this object, use it, and show it at the end view, which we're getting to. So we copied over some code, that should be fine there. Let's just get rid of this. I'll explain the code briefly, as best as I can. But first of all, so here we have a first action, and all pages come up with this index action. You can see it turns a strange thing called an action result. And these views can return many different action results, as you call it. You can recall JSON results and many other results back to the end view. But let's just stick with this action result right now here. So now here we're creating just a simple employee information class, which we created here. And then we're just going to simply add information to that so it can render to the screen. This guy, age is 1, so he started work really young. Let's put something more appropriate, I guess, there. 33, and he's a supervisor, and his name's Fred. Now, this view will be sent, that's the mechanics that sends information back to our HTML, or actually in MVC, back to the .cshtml view. And we're passing this employee object back. Now, to add a view, you right-click on this guy, and you go here and add view. It's all quite simple if you know where to click. That's what they always say. So, for our first one, there's a number of things we can see here. We want Razor in there. There is another one, but ASP, Razor is the standard these days. So, for my personal opinion, just go with Razor. Razor works quite well. Again, it might take a while, but it's the standard and it works quite well, but you might have to learn it for a while. So now, here, this model class, what we're telling this view is to use this model class that we're going to put in here to show information. It needs to know which model class it's going to use. And for us, that's the employee information object. So we click that in there. And here in the scaffold template, this allows us to render HTML quite quickly and easily. You can do many different things: create, delete, details, empty means there'll be nothing. For ours, we just want the details, because we're just showing one user, and we just need to see these details on the end screen of one user. Partial view, different subject, use layout or master pages. You can use master pages or layout pages. Some people who are new to that concept, what it is, you create a master page and then you link this page that we're going to create into that master page, but that's a different subject. So with all that in mind, we've got it all ready to go. We just click add. Did I click add? Oh, okay. A little bit impatient. So voila, ta-da, it does everything for us. So this is, once you get your head around MVC, it is quite useful for doing all these things. It's made all this special code here, these HTML helpers. I'll talk more about those in later tutorials. This one here, we're just going to more or less just sort of render a label. Not a text box, nothing else, because we can't edit it, we just want to see it. Notice this piece of information here is important. As we can see, it's telling this page to use this model, employee information, to fill in information here against this label here. And it does that by using a lambda expression, model, the lambda and the name, and that's for the heading. And then again, we make one for the actual contents. So this is our header, and this is the actual contents. So this is our header, it'll be job title, and this is the actual contents, so forth and so forth. So that's in a nutshell. It does come with predefined action links, delete. I will delete those because, well, technically they don't work. We have to put more code in that to make that magic happen. So why have code around that doesn't work and is of no use? So now we should be able to build that. Fingers crossed. Build succeeded. And it's coming up into Chrome. Slowly but surely. Oh, okay. So here we go. Now this will render straight to this index view because the routing of MVC it can see that file, it can use it, and it can route straight there. For other routing or other URLs that we're going to create, we're going to have to physically type those in. Yeah, that's MVC and routing is a bit of a different subject, but we will get to that as soon as MVC does. And feel free to, well, what can I say, fast forward because, well, my PC is not the fastest of machines. Here we go. Oh, yay! Hooray, hooray, hooray. So we can see here Fred coming up. Job title, he's a supervisor, and he's not 1 year old. He's actually, yes, as we wanted, 33 years old. So, you know, yeah, we can see, oops, we can see everything quite well here now. We've got physical code from our application showing in a web page. So that's the aim of web technology. So this could be deployed now and everybody would be happy. I will demonstrate just there's many different ways of rendering information. There's obviously tons of different information that can be rendered. I have it already created. So these two ones here, let's copy these guys over. So I'll demonstrate, well, we might as well do them both at the same time. So this guy here, we just talked about this one briefly. We're just going to show a URL called time information. We get the current dates, so we don't have to pass a class back. We can pass many different things back. This special guy, ViewBag, allows us to create dynamic stuff on the web page, just string information if we want as well, and we're going to do that. So the aim of this time information here is going to display the current date on that associated web page. If we look at our next controller action here, this is called the employee list. What we're going to do here is, again, just use this employee object, but show multiple people instead of just the one person. So I wanted to showcase the use of MVC to be able to show multiples rather than just one. So for each of these action results, we need to add a view. And so we're not going to use a strongly typed one because we're not going to be showing any employee information on this one. So everything should be set like as shown on the screen here. Oh, sorry, no, what we will do. Oh no, that's correct as it is now. So we will just press add. And that'll get us that guy. that we, well, I really could have typed this, but I do prefer my tutorials to be working 100% correct. So anyway, so here's our view for that controller action here, and we're using this special guy called viewBag. This guy, if we move him over a little bit, this guy here will grab this guy's contents. Simple. Let's just, so we'll leave him there. Let's just, before we build, we might as well add a view for this guy here as well. So here on this one, we will again do a different action in here. We will be using an employee information model class because we want to show employee information, so we have to use that as the model. But this guy is this time going to change. We want to show a list of employees, like I mentioned. So we want to select this one. We're not going to create, we're going to show a list, because here we can see we've got a list of employees. So that should be straightforward. So that's all set as it is. We click add, and via the power of MVC, it's done again a lot of the hard work for us. I want to draw attention to this important thing, because when I was first programming in MVC, you can get confused by it all. It's important that this model is an INumerable. If we can just show this one here, if we look at this guy here, you might notice this is just one object, so it's not an INumerable, but this is showing multiples, and that's what INumerable does. It's saying this holds a collection or a list of model information. So that's an important discrepancy between showing multiples and one. That's what this guy does here. The rest of it's also obviously generated by MVC. We will get rid of this code here because we will not be creating anybody new. But you can see that MVC is trying to make your life easier by already adding in all this code. So if you want to go back and create that, that's already useful. Those new to Razor, what we're doing here, so we're doing a loop. Let's start at the top. This is creating the headers of our table. And now let's go to the bottom here. This for each is going to display each employee in our class there. So the for each does that. What it does, it grabs all the information from this guy, puts it in this guy, who then puts it in this guy. And we can obviously see name, job title, and age being displayed there. So let's build. We have two URLs to look at, which is time information and employee list information. There are many more facets to MVC. I've been working for some time in software development, and yeah, it's MVC compared to web forms. For me, it's my personal opinion, it's a bit more complicated than the old web forms were. But hey, technology moves on and we have to move with it. So we're building here. As mentioned, this is going to go straight to our index page, because that's the default of this application. So we will see just one employee. But I will let it finish its convolutions, its movement here. Again, feel free to fast forward. It should only be another few seconds. Let's center this a bit better. Alright. Anytime now. Come on. Go MVC. Do your magic. Right, here we go. Like I said, it's defaulting now to that index view that we had. So we've got to type in the physical URL. We will do the, is it time information. Got it right. So as we can see, I'll bring over the code here. That's this view here rendering over there. Oops, let's get that time back. So this is rendering this view here, this URL, and obviously it's calling this action result. So we can see that it worked fine. Now let's do our employee list. And there we go. This guy's obviously calling our action here, our action result here, employee list, which indirectly, whatever language you want to use, calls this view page here. So one thing I'll briefly mention is you might notice, how does it know to go to the home directory? Whatever you name your controller here, if it's called home, it'll go to, you type in home. You don't type the part of the controller name there. So if this was called welcome controller, you'd type in welcome here. That you can change that in the code to point to whatever URL you want, but generally that's how the URLs here work in a brief statement. So, okay, so in this tutorial we've just looked at the different parts and folders which make up MVC. Now we've talked about here that each MVC app normally has a controller, a model, and views associated with certain actions within that. So that's the basic parts of an MVC app. We've talked about here about the different ways that information is shown back. It's a very flexible language and you can show many different parts within all of this. But yeah, so I hope this has been of some help to some people. I will be creating other tutorials coming up soon, and I just hope you have a pleasant day, and thanks for viewing.